Okay, so today in writing, you're going to be taking notes in your writing notebook before you get started on your own. And we're going to talk about minor characters today. So, what I want you to do is go ahead and write these 6 types of minor characters. Um, there are lots of opportunities for minor characters. In your personal narrative, you're limited to real people. In other kinds of stories, you might be able to come up with fantasy figures like monsters and supervillains and that sort of thing. But certainly in your personal narrative, you should have at least one of this type of person. So, family members, friends, enemies, because let's face it, they exist. Sidekicks or best friends, which is a little different than friends because I can have friends and then I can have my favorite person in the world or my person who always has my back, and that's not the same thing. This might be a friend, it might be my cousin, it might be my sister, but this is a special kind of relationship that's a little different than just regular family or friends. You could have a neighbor in your story, or you could have authority figures, police, principals, teachers, babysitters, that sort of thing. So I want you to think right now in your story, who of this kind of person is in your story? You don't want your story with every single one of these minor characters because the trick is that your narrative is not 27 chapters long. So you want to be careful that your story is about you and that you don't lose track of what your story is really about. But at the same time, your minor characters can help you move the action along. And ways to make sure that you are taking care of your minor characters in your narrative are to add dialogue, so having conversations with each other, showing actions, things that you're doing with them or that they're doing with each other, just describing them. You don't want to spend the whole time describing them because that can get a little boring, but it wouldn't hurt to tell us what they look like or their personality or something like that. And while you're at it, try comparing them to yourself. You could be talking about your best friend and you could be saying, um, I can never reach the shelf, but my best friend is a whole foot taller than I am, so I always have her reach the highest shelf. So things like that just give you an idea about your relationship with that person, but also tells you a little bit about them. You can also just do a really quick flashback where you say, I remember when I met them back in whatever, which we just did in Sidekicked, right? In our story, Drew just talked about when he met Jenna. And it didn't take very long for him to do that. So you could always add a flashback too. But you want to make sure that your minor character is helping you move the action. What is your story about? What are you trying to tell us? And then how can you have other people in your story? Remember, you're not inventing new people. These are people that were actually there because this is a true personal narrative. But think about it. What kinds of people can you add? So I want you to go back today, take a look at your personal narrative that you've already written, and identify the minor characters. Once you've identified the minor characters, I want you to choose at least one of them to make more. Add more descriptions, add more dialogue, add something from this list to make that minor character come alive. So that's your job today. And of course, when you finish that, you can go right back to typing your story in Google Docs.